We are going to be looking in this book together for science today. Don't freak out. You don't have this book at home. This is my book, but I'm going to use it to go through some of the things we're going to be talking about. You have a sheet that talks about sand, silt, and clay. Now, if you want to have that sheet out right now, I know usually what I would say is you may not draw while I am teaching. You need to pay attention. Well, sometimes drawing can actually help you focus and help you get some of the things you're hearing and process them. So there's a blank space between each of the boxes on your sheet. Today, as I am explaining sand or silt or clay, as you're listening, if you would like to draw some pictures that help you to show what I'm talking about, you can do that. So this is like your permission to doodle, but in a smart way. Don't just draw like, oh, I drew a princess on a unicorn. That has nothing to do with science. So no unicorn princesses, okay? But there are going to be some things that you could draw. So first I'm going to give you an overview why we talk about these three different types of soil. And then we're going to get into details about what each type is. So first of all, particles are tiny pieces of something. So sand is surprisingly made up of large particles. When you touch sand, you can feel each little piece in your hands, right? When you go to the beach. So imagine that feeling of sand. They're pretty big particles. But silt has slightly smaller particles, and clay has very small particles. Sandy soil has a lot of sand in it, so it feels gritty. It's often a light color. Silty soil feels smooth, and it usually has a brownish color. So most of the topsoil that we think of would be sort of silty. But then there's also clay, and clay soil feels slippery and sticky, and it usually has a dark brown color. You might sometimes, if you're like digging a hole in your backyard, you might get through topsoil and get to that kind of soil that just feels like it's a lump, and it's very smooth and slippery, and it's hard to dig, and you can't like mush it around or play with it much. That's clay. So we have all probably experienced that too. We've experienced all of these types of soil, just in different locations. All right, let's talk a little bit about sand. Make everybody want to go to the beach. Maybe Emerson, you'll put on your beach outfit again. Ooh, that could be fun. We should be doing like beach day. I like it. Have you ever stuck your feet into wet, sandy soil on a beach? Do you remember the texture of the sand? Neither smooth nor rough. If you visit a pebble beach or a stone beach, you'll see rocks on the way to becoming sand. So sandy soil has a lot of sand in it. The extra sand allows water to drain through it, so sandy soil dries out quickly after rain. Sandy soil is made up of particles that are smaller than gravel, but larger than silt. Sandy soil contains little organic matter. Organic just means like things that are alive. So imagine when you're at the beach, you're sitting on the beach, are there like plants growing all over the place? Not usually, not in the sand, because that's not where they grow best. There are a few plants that grow well in sand, but it's not where most plants can thrive. Let's take a look at silt now. So have you ever made mud pies? Have you ever put a mud mask on your face? Or maybe someone you know has done that. If you have done that, then you have felt silt. So if you guys have ever gone outside and played in the dirt, you have been touching silt. Silty soil feels smooth and kind of powdery. Silt can hold a lot of water, and it often has a brownish color. Silt is mainly made of a mineral that's called quartz. Don't worry about that detail. That's not something you need to remember, but it's sort of interesting. You may have quartz countertops in your kitchen. Silt is found in soil, but it can also be found floating in a lake or pond. Silt is sometimes washed up on land by flooding rivers or lakes. Some rivers, like the Nile River in Egypt, which we're going to be talking more about as we continue on in our Bible lessons, that river has a lot of silt in it. And other rivers only have a little bit of silt. crops grow well in silty soil because it's rich in nutrients and it holds water for a long time. And what do plants need? Plants need water to grow. So that's why sandy soil, which dries out very quickly, doesn't have a lot of water to give to plants. Plants don't grow as well there. Silty soil does hold water, so plants can use it. Now, this is sort of an interesting thing about the Nile River. In Egypt, farmers rely on the Nile River flooding. Flooding is a really good thing. Each year, the river floods and overflows its banks. The flooding spreads the nutrient-rich silt all over the desert area near the Nile. Then it also brings water to channels to distant land. So farmers can grow many crops in that soil. So this area beside the Nile River, this land that would usually be kind of like a desert, because the Nile floods, it spreads nutrients all over these fields. And then when the flooding goes down, these fields are a great place to grow things. As we continue on in this unit, we're going to learn a little bit about how flooding rivers can actually be a really good thing for the soil, and how this is actually a part of God's very good plan for continuing to give us food and to continue to make the soil healthy for us. Let's keep going. Finally, we're going to talk about clay for a little bit. Have you ever used clay to make different shapes, like in art class? How many shapes can you make? How did it feel in your hands? So we haven't done like pottery clay, but the clay that we use in class, like that's the same idea, okay? That kind of a feeling, that sticky, big lump kind of feeling. Clay soil feels slippery, it feels slimy. It can hold large amounts of water, but it can get very hard if it's dried out. So sand doesn't hold a lot of water. Silt can hold water. Clay holds a lot of water. The best place for plants to grow is silt because it holds water, but it can dry. Okay, plants, the roots, they need water, but they could also drown if they have too much water. So in clay, there's too much water and it doesn't go away fast enough. So clay is not a good place for things to grow. Clay is usually dark brown or gray, but it can have lots of different colors, including like a deep orange red. Many trees and shrubs can grow well in clay soils. Think these are bigger plants. In thick clay soils, however, the roots of most flowering or vegetable plants, smaller plants, they're not strong enough to break through the soil. And also, clay soil doesn't release enough water for these plants to use, and air can't circulate. So there's a lot of water in clay, but it's so stuck in the clay that it can't get into the plant. So the plants are like starving for water and drowning at the same time. This is why only very large plants with big root systems can survive well in clay. If I just want to grow a pepper plant in clay soil, it's not going to grow very well. All right. You have had some time to draw. If you want to finish up your drawings, feel free. If you want to do some coloring, feel free. There's nothing you need to hand in to me today. This is just a lesson to keep learning about all of these things that we are going to be learning about, so that when we come back to school together, hopefully halfway through February, that's my hope, then you will be caught up on all these things and we can start looking a little more in depth. Have a good day, guys.